So going forward, I'm just going to speak about the scholarship forms that are available. So the system in the US is slightly different from what you have in the UK in terms of when you hear Chevening, Commonwealth, MasterCard, and all the other organizations that are popular. If this thing breaks again, I'll have to change my location. So there are two major forms, two common forms. One is teaching assistantships, and the second is research assistantships. Teaching assistantships and research assistantships. And this is how it works. As a teaching assistantship is a form of scholarship that when given to a person, be given the opportunity to teach and at the same time school. That's how it works. You are schooling, you are doing your program, whether it's a master's degree or a PhD program, and at the same time, you are working as a teacher in that department. And in that system, tuition will be paid. In most cases, your tuition is being paid. You are receiving monthly stipends, and you're doing your work. That's as a teaching assistant. The other form, which is also very common, is research assistantship. In this case, you are working as a research assistant to a professor and you are schooling at the same time. And so by doing that, your tuition is covered and you receive monthly stipends. So that's how it works in the US. You work and you're schooling at the same time, right? Yeah, and having said that, it's important to say this, you have to ask questions. You have to make inquiries. And that's why I started by saying that this thing is like an open secret. It is there, but if you don't ask questions, if you don't make inquiries, you may never get to know that these opportunities exist. So ask questions and make inquiries, right? Next thing I'm adding on to is, how do you know you're qualified? How do you know you're qualified? A lot of people have a mentality that you have to be a first-class degree holder, a first-class holder from your bachelor's to get these opportunities, but that's not absolute, right? I know people personally who graduated with a 2-1 and they have PhD offers in the US. So it is possible. So do not, you never know until you try. Do not judge yourself before you get to the court of law. Don't judge yourself yet. You never know until you try. So how do you know you're qualified? It's not, and another thing I want to say, it's not always about how qualified you think you are. So this is what I'm trying to drive at. Many times, and this is based on observation, many schools in the US accept students, how do I put this now? Not solely on, they don't put everybody on the same scale when they are accepting people. What am I trying to say? They try to have a balanced demographic of students that they are admitting into their program. And what that means is that people from underrepresented populations can get into the table, even if they are not as qualified as some other people. What am I trying to say? If you are a lady, for example, even if there are so many guys, ladies may be prioritized. Another thing is, if you are a black person gets priority again. So you never know. Don't judge yourself before you get to the court of law. There are times many schools, there are times they have an amount of African students they want to admit into their program. So even though your application is not as strong as your white counterparts, they would still pick and you will get into the program regardless. So I just wanted to say that so that, when I came into my department, we were 4 blacks. I was the only girl, right? And the next batch, there are like 8 blacks right now that just came in, and there's still 1 girl. I can obviously see that there's a priority for girls. They want girls, more ladies in. So if you are a lady, even though you don't have a very high CGPA, you don't have such a great application per se, but you put your foot forward, you have very high chances of getting in. I just wanted to put that out. So having said that, you can see that what seemed like an odd is not necessarily an odd. What seemed like a disadvantage may be working in your advantage, in this case. Having said that, how do you then access these opportunities? What do you do? How do you get in? Search, search, search. Google is your friend. Search, search, search. A lot of people ask me some questions, and I'm wondering, how do you ask these questions? They're like, how did you know your school had this? I went online. I searched for it. Simple. I basically randomly searched for schools in the US. There are so many schools in the US, and many of these schools have, I said many, not all, mind you, many of these schools have a lot of funding that is being pumped into these schools, and they just need people who want to do these PhD programs and master's programs, right? So it is there. If you don't search, you may never get to know that it's there. So search. Google is your friend. The school's website is your friend. You will always find all the information you need on the school website. One funny thing is, by the time I got here and I was speaking with people, Nigerians that were here, and they were asking me, how did you get this opportunity? I'm like, I just applied. And they're like, are you sure you didn't know somebody inside? I said, no, I don't know anybody on the inside. I just applied and I got it, right? So even people in the US are trying to get this opportunity, but because they didn't go online to search for these things, they don't know that these things are available. So you go online, Google is your friend, search for all these things, and you find the information you need. Another thing is emailing. Is different. The system we're used to is different from the American system. In Nigeria, I'm sure you probably don't even have the confidence to stop the HOD of your department, the head of your department. You don't have the confidence to stop him and ask him questions. It's very different here. So regardless of who you are, where you come from, you can send an email to the head of the program director, whatever the title is, in a department in the US, and they will respond to you. Yes, you get a response so quickly. So send emails if you have questions about anything. You can ask them about funding opportunities available in that department. That's if they've not already given information about these things. Many times information about these things are already made available. You just need to read it up. And many times they have FAQs, frequently asked questions, already on their website. You just need to read it and find out the information about how things work in that space. So anything that is not yet answered and you have a question concerning that thing, just send emails and you have received answers to that. Having said that, how do you prepare a strong application? I know I'm saying a lot of things, and that's because we don't have a lot of time. And I'm expecting that if there is anything you want me to emphasize on or shed more light on, I'm expecting that those will come up in questions and I'll be able to expatiate on some of the things I am just brushing over right now. How do you prepare a strong application? So this comes up after you found a school. So you just simply search online. You go to their website, check if they have the program you want, right? Check if you meet the requirements, and you then put in your application. How do you put in a strong application? Basically, the most common things that entail a strong application are your GPA, your statement of purpose, or any other essays they may be requiring, your CV, your transcripts, your recommendations, and application fees. Schools in the US require application fees in most cases. And let me say that if you want to get into schools in the US, I typically tell people that prepare your mind to pay at least one application fee. I know it's expensive, but in the long run, it's very likely to be worth it. Prepare your mind to pay at least one application fee. And from my own experience, I paid one application fee, and that was the school, and that's the school right now. I paid one application fee in that school right now. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. So as I was saying, prepare your mind to pay one application fee. And the reason for that is this. what I've observed in my personal experience is that many schools that waive, you have to pay application fee, you can ask for application fee waivers, and some schools can waive it for you, right? So if you keep asking for fee waivers, you can get a lot of fee waivers. I applied to, I think, 8 or 9 schools in the US, and I think I got 4 offers at the end of the day. And I got waivers for everyone except for one school, except for my school. My school insisted that they were not giving any fee waiver. They said you have to pay the application fee. But guess what? Once you can get into my school, you have full funding, 100% funding. There's some schools that gave me fee waiver, application fee waiver. By the time they gave me their offer, they were partially funded. So that's why I keep saying, if you want to get in, full funding, prepare your mind to pay at least one application fee. But in the meantime, it's also good to explore fee waivers. The name of my school is University of Maryland. And meanwhile, if you want to come into the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, there are lots and lots of funding. So go check up my school's departments. You can come in. There is full assurance if you're accepted, you'll be fully funded. All right, so having said that, application fee. Now, of all these things that make up a strong application, which is your GPA and all the things I mentioned earlier, there are some things you probably cannot change anymore, especially if you've graduated from university. You know, if you're still an undergrad, good for you. You can still work on your GPA, your transcripts. You can still, work on your relationship with your lecturers so that you have good recommendation letters. But if you've graduated already, and there's nothing you can do, the things you can change and modify are your CV, your SOP, right? And I mentioned application fee, I've spoken about that. So your CV and your SOP. So you want to put the best foot forward in your SOP. Speaking about SOP, never write an SOP and submit it all by yourself. Get somebody who is well-versed and knowledgeable about the system and the process to review for you, to make corrections for you. Because I promise you, no matter how intelligent you are, you're not likely to put things the right way, bearing in mind the kind of educational background we have in Nigeria or in Africa in general. So you probably are not going to put things rightly. So you need somebody. So do not write an essay all by yourself and just submit it. No, I had at least 2 people who were reviewing my essays for me until I had the perfect essay that was great, that I submitted for all my my applications. So that's that. And always put the best foot forward. CV. So you probably cannot do anything about your bachelor's degree already, but you can acquire skills that can enrich your CV. Depending on what you're going for, what program, that's what would show you how to channel and enrich your CV. So I would definitely use my experience as a primary example. I'm a PhD student. I was applying for PhD programs, and what they want to see in a PhD student is that this person has capacity to do research. So they want to see proof that you've gotten involved in research in the past. They want to see that. So one of the highlights would be publications. If you have at least one publication, it gives you an edge. It shows them that, okay, this person can do research and this person is suitable for this program, right? Yeah, that's one major thing. Depending on what program you're doing, it may vary. If you're not in chemistry, I can't really speak for specific disciplines, but for my discipline and for PhD program, then that's one thing they want to see. Apart from publications, they also want to see a bit of chemistry knowledge. They want to see that you got involved in certain projects in the past. You can include that in your CV. They want to see that you have hands-on skills on certain instruments. They want to see that. And I understand that because of where we found ourselves in Nigeria or in Africa in general, we probably don't have access to some of these things, but there are ways you can work around it such that you have a bit of experience here and there, right? So for example, publication, even if you are not in a research environment, at least your undergraduate projects, if you can, I always advise at least make sure that gets published. And I'm sure that there are other seminars on this platform that will talk to you about how to get more publications. One funny thing for me is by the time I was applying, I had 3 publications, and don't even think that I did a lot of research. I didn't do a lot of research, but I had 3 publications already on my CV. And that was because I spoke to people. And I will say it here because it's a closed group. One publication was from my undergraduate project. And that was because I told my supervisor that I want to apply for this after school. This project must be published. And immediately after graduation, we started working on the manuscript. By the next year, it was published already, right? The other 2, I didn't actually carry out the work per se, right? One was from friends. I got into it and blah, blah, blah. Somehow, my name got on one of the authors. On another one, it didn't necessarily have something to do with me. It was from one of my senior colleagues who was working on that project and who was aware of what I was doing. And he gave me some work to do. He said, okay, do some proofreading, do some editing. I did a bit of work, I contributed to that, and my name got on that paper. So do you see, there are ways to work around this. So some of you have senior colleagues around you, you're not speaking with them, they're probably doing a master's degree, they're doing a PhD work, they have lots of papers they're working on. You want to get closer to them, let them know your intent, be ready to work. Meanwhile, be ready to work, be ready to put in some efforts. And you never know, just having 2-3 publications on your about your CGPA anymore, but you can do something about it, right? I'll be highlighting on, and we can have questions. I hope everyone can still hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Routes of entry into schools in the US. So there are 2 major routes of entry. One is just a simple application, which was what I did. I simply applied. And in many cases, in many schools in the US, you don't need to, they usually, most schools do not usually have separate applications for funding. In most schools, they will typically say if you're accepted, then you'll be funded, most schools. So whatever is the case in that school, you just follow up with that. I simply applied and that was it. And I got accepted in the program, I got full funding, right? The second one is by emailing professors. This is another, I never emailed any professor. I never did, right? But there are people who come in through these routes. And that's why I said it varies from school to school, right? There was a school I was going to apply to at some point, and they strictly mentioned on their website that they do not want prospective students to send any email to any departments. So you know what applies in that school. That school strictly said, do not email our professors, just apply. If we're taking you, then we'll take you. After we take you, then we'll check if you will then be able to gain access to our professors. So emailing professors is another thing people do. And this one is also very effective. A lot of people get in and all of that. But so many people are just so many people get so concerned about emailing professors that they don't know you can simply apply and still get in. So depending on what applies, I was going to do this anyways. I was going to do that, but I just didn't get a chance to, so I just left it. So that's where I will be stopping for now. I hope we have questions for me already. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope I wasn't speaking too fast, and I hope this was helpful. The last few minutes were helpful. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Sure. Thank you so much, Esther. So I think we have a few minutes. So if you have questions, I think somebody's already asking a question on the message. I mean the text there.
Okay, great question. She says, I don't even know if it's a she or E, I'm sorry. What about GRE? So currently, I don't know what the situation is with regards to GRE, but at the time I was applying, GRE was being waived because of COVID-19. Many schools were waiving GRE. And I honestly did not want to write GRE, but I eventually did. Now, one interesting thing is, I don't think my school required GRE because I don't remember. Some schools made me submit my GRE results, some schools didn't. but I don't think I submitted for my school. So schools are waiving it. I don't know what the situation is now, but I must say this, GRE can be very helpful. And I'll give you a specific example of how GRE was very helpful for me. After I got into the school and we're getting ready to resume, the department then says to we Africans, they said that if you're going to be a teaching assistant, then you're going to undergo an English language evaluation, blah, 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 just to be sure that you can communicate in English language. I'm like, okay, fine. But they put a caveat. They said, if you've taken TOEFL, IELTS, then you can be exempted. I'm like, oh, what, really? So taking these exams may exempt you from some things that can come up later in the future. Sometimes taking these tests may put you at a better level in getting funding in some cases. Some schools will say if you took GRE, then you get certain funding. So I would always advise that try to take one of these tests. It's helpful somehow, you never know. It may not, apart from the fact that it may even increase your chances of getting into the program. Even after you've gotten into the program, something can come up later on where they are doing some language, blah, 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 evaluation, or where they are trying to, shortlist the amount of applications they have. It may come into place. So I always advise that you do that. I hope that answered questions. Another question here says, does full funding apply to fall or spring or all? So it depends on the school. It depends on the school. That's why you must know what works in that school. If they don't clearly state it on their website, then send emails to them to ask. In my school, they don't even take in students in the spring semester. It's only in the fall semester. And they've structured the calendar such that if a student comes into the spring, it's going to disrupt a lot of things. Comes in the spring semester, pardon me. So you must know what works in that school. So depending on the school, you then know. So this is not a general question. This is not a general thing that applies to every school in the US. I hope that answered your question. Any other questions for me? We have about 6 minutes, 30 seconds on this meeting. No other questions? Interesting.
Okay. All right, I think no one is asking question again. So that's cool. Oh, somebody is asking for your school's name again.
You know, my school is University of Maryland. It's on the flyer that was posted on the group, so you can always check it. University of Maryland. Can I suggest skills apart from publication? Okay, great. So I said what skills would determine, what skills you have would be determined, or what skills you need to have will be determined by what program you're going in for. So someone who is going in for a computer related course probably may not need publications. I'm not sure about that, but that's just an example. So it has to do with what program you're looking at, right? So I can't really say, but there are other general skills that usually, I feel like this is like a topic on its own, CV, enriching your CV.
Sure.
It's a whole topic on its own, so I may not be able to give a lot of details about that. Another question says, which is better, TA or RE? Well, honestly, RA is better. RA is actually better in terms of, because RA is like you are doing your work, but TA is like you are working for the department and you still have to do your work, right? So RA is actually better, but whichever comes, I advise that you take it. It's all good. It's doable. It's doable, it's possible. And some different schools have different ways they work. In my school, every first year student is a TA. You don't have a choice. If you are in the first year, you have to teach. And that applies in many schools. I've checked many other websites. That's what they do. You have to teach in the first year. But after the first year, whether you would teach or you become an RA would then depend on your supervisor. So it would depend if your supervisor has funding, then your supervisor may choose to place you on funding and you don't teach anymore. My supervisor may choose not to place you on funding and you have to teach. But what's important is that your program is progressing and you are doing what you are there for. Another question says, can you take your spouse along if you're offered funding? So this has to do with like visa issues. I know. So this is a difficult question for me, actually. I don't know how to answer this. It depends. It depends. Yes, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no, but it has to do with like visa. If your spouse is coming in on your visa, that's because of you. First of all, you're going to be an F1 student. You're going to be on an F1 visa. Then your spouse will be on an F2. So it really depends, and that has more to do with visa. I'm not very knowledgeable about it, so I'd rather not give wrong information about that. So I think you should just look up for other helpful resources, or maybe subsequent seminars may speak to that. Another question says, please, is there any particular grade that one must get in MSc to be able to progress to PhD? I'm not aware of such. And at the beginning of this seminar, I mentioned that I don't have a master's degree. I graduated with bachelor's. I had my bachelor's and got straight into PhD. Even though I graduated with the first class in my bachelor's, I know people who graduated with 2-1 and they got direct PhD offers. So I'm not sure there is a particular grade you must have in an MSc to be able to get into PhD. I don't think there is anything like that. We have about 2 minutes to the end of this seminar. If you have any questions, you can ask, and I'm here to answer your questions. Attending online conferences, can it also help? Yes, I believe so, yes. I believe so, yes. I think what's important is that you have the proof. And even if you don't have it, to be honest, I don't think anybody's checking it. Yes, because on my CV, I put some trainings I attended, some conferences I've gone for, and I put the titles where they happened, where it took place, the names of those organizations on my CV. But nobody has questioned that CV before. Nobody tried to say, did you really do these things, right? So I don't think anybody cares. Right, so yes, it will definitely, it should boost your CV, I believe. Any other questions? We have about 1 minute.
Okay, sorry, I want to ask, I'm wondering how possible it is for you to, proceed to PhD without your MSc. I think I'm hearing it for the first time, so maybe you should shed more light on that, please. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's possible. Like I said at the beginning, it's an open secret. It is the system in the US, as a matter of fact. A lot of people a lot of professors, if you go to US schools and check those professors, we have less than a minute, but if you check those professors, many of them did not do a separate master's program. They went from their bachelor's straight into PhD. So it happens and it works, right? I believe more will be shared about this subsequently.
Yeah, thank you, Esther. If you have not answered your questions, you can drop it in the WhatsApp group, and the Esther will try to address this question at our own, time. So, and some of the questions we are asking, we try to address them in the subsequent seminars too. So just try to be at large, try to look out for those seminars. So I think we have to stop the meeting now, and then we will see everyone the next time.